and welcome to a great battle of the ports as we take a look at Konami's fantastic Salamander 2, which first hit the arcades in January 1996. That's 30 years ago and it still looks great even now. Running on the Konami GX Type 2 arcade board, Salamander 2 is the arcade sequel to Salamander, which came out 10 years prior in 1986, and is the third installment in the Salamander series, itself a spin-off of Konami's larger Gradius franchise. Salamander 2 features a noticeably drastic change in the art direction from Konami's other shooters, with darker, more washed out colour choices, but saying that, it still pops in many areas. Its character designs and artwork were designed by Mariko Tokida. She claims to have had difficulty designing the first stage boss and moving asteroid obstacles due to the enormity of the colour palette and the complex sprite animation tools. The soundtrack was composed by Naoki Maeda, who went on to create various tracks for the Dance Dance Revolution series. In total, there are 6 stages in Salamander 2, split between horizontal and vertical styles, just like the original Salamander. Of course, upon completing the 6th stage, the game loops to a higher difficulty level. By destroying red coloured enemies, players can collect powered up items that enhance their weapons. Both players begin the game with a standard forward moving shot and can upgrade these in addition to a force field, bombs and speed ups. Players can also collect option seeds, which circle their ship and also assist the player in fighting off enemies. Options can be launched at enemies to create powerful shocks of lightning that home in on nearby targets. And let's end on a bit of trivia. Player 2 controls a ship known as the Super Cobra, which is named after Konami's 1981 arcade game of the same name, that is loosely tied to the Gradius series.
The fight!
The very first port came to the Saturn as part of the Salamander Deluxe Pack Plus on June 19th, 1997. Being on the Saturn, you'd expect this to be great, and it is! But before we get into the game, check out this awesome music player. The entire soundtrack is featured, along with some unused tracks and a track from the Jammer test build that was only 30% complete. Very cool. Now on to the game, and what we have here is basically arcade perfect. The looks, sounds and speed are all here. I'm playing on the default difficulty setting without a single hint of slowdown. There's also zero loading between stages. Well, there is loading, but you can't notice it at all. The stage transitions are seamless, just like the arcade. I will say that the rapid fire option makes this more accessible than the arcade, but on the negative side, I'm sure they've pumped up the difficulty level of the final boss. It sure seems to throw more at you than the arcade version on the default setting. Oh, and I should mention that the Saturn port loops just like the arcade version and features the second loop music tracks.
Hyper ready. Missile.
Just like the Saturn, the PlayStation also got Salamander 2 as part of the Salamander Deluxe Pack Plus, 1 month later on July 6th. Just like the Saturn version, this also features a nice CG intro as well as the cool sound test, but it has been altered in a bad way. The song titles now don't show up until you're playing the song, whereas on the Saturn, the song title is always shown, so you know what track you're selecting rather than having to go through each one. As for the game, yeah, it follows the Saturn difficulty, but you know what? I suck at playing this game on the PlayStation. I don't know why. It feels a little twitchy. Could it be the PlayStation controller, or is it the game? I don't know, but what I do know is that on the Saturn the experience felt smoother. As for loading, there is a brief loading screen just before the second loop that isn't on the Saturn or arcade. But besides that, this is also seamless when transitioning from stage to stage, and I didn't notice any slowdown, which is a bonus. On January 25, 2007, M2 ported the game to the PSP as part of the Salamander Portable Collection. The Saturn and PlayStation ports were both done by Konami Tokyo. For an M2 port, this is pretty basic. The game is the arcade version, and I'm very much sure this is just emulated on the PSP. I see a few frame drops here and there, which leads me to believe it is emulated. Also, a surprise from M2 is that the default screen size is the horrid stretched option. You need to go into the options to select the correct aspect ratio. Also, once you've done that, you have a wallpaper that you can't switch off. Playing Salamander 2 on the move is cool, but I wish M2 would at least give us the option to switch off the wallpaper. Still, the most important point is how the game plays, and thankfully, I can't find any fault with that. Finally, we have the M2 developed Gradius Original Collection, which was released on the PS5, Switch, Xbox Series S and X, and Steam. Apparently all versions came out on August 7th, 2025. Now this is basically just arcade emulation, which I don't normally cover, but since I have the Series X physical copy, I thought, what the hell, and included it. And actually, maybe a good thing that I am including it. As to be expected, the game has all the M2 Trigger series options, including a very nice CRT filter that you can custom to suit your tastes. There's an invincibility mode, practice modes, and so on. Even a cool mode that lets you switch on the hitboxes. But the main point I want to address is that this version is full of slowdown. Now, the arcade version emulated in MAME has graphical issues, but it doesn't slow down. The Saturn and PlayStation and PSP versions don't slow down, but this one does, and it does very badly. Just look at this boss. It's practically in slow motion. Is this how the true arcade PCB actually runs? Been over 20 years since I saw the original arcade, so I can't remember, but it sure surprised me. And let's take a look at all those versions of Salamander running side by side.